Good afternoon. This is Bill Klingberg with SCORE. Welcome to the webinar Leadership versus Management. First, a quick few words about SCORE. We are a nationwide organization of volunteers. There's 11,000 of us nationwide with 150 of us here in Houston. We offer mentoring and classes, education, such as this webinar. To get any of our mentoring, you go to our website, houston.score.org, and click on Find a Mentor. The best thing is to put in a keyword. For instance, if you want to start a restaurant, I'm not the person to talk to. I sold pumps for a living. But there are SCORE mentors here in Houston who own restaurants and can talk to you knowledgeably. In addition to industry specific people, we also have lawyers, accountants, manufacturing folks, sales and marketing. We have a lot of different people. The key to SCORE is to find someone that has been there and done that so that you don't have to repeat the mistakes that we made somewhere in the past. Excuse me. The mentoring is free. Most of our workshops / webinars are free also. With a few exceptions, but we are here to serve you. So please go to the website, houston.score.org, and take a look at what we have. If there are any questions, Bill Klingberg, you know me because I'm in the education part of it. So you have my email address and my phone number. So use it if you need it. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Willie Verburg, who is our speaker today. Take it away, Willie.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Okay, who's Willie? Let's start with that. Willie is born and raised in Belgium. I have 5 masters. I lived in 5 countries, spoke 8.5 languages, been CEO of $10 billion companies in 10 different industries, and I had manufacturing plants in 186 countries around the world. I've also been a serial entrepreneur, started 4 companies, and been the chairman of the Belgian Chamber of Commerce here in Houston and Texas, the chairman of the Mayor International Trade Development Council, all economic missions coming and going from Houston. And since a year, I'm a volunteer with SCORE, giving back to the community and helping entrepreneurs start up their own companies. And that's what I want to talk to you about today is how to start your company and how to lead it versus managing your company. One of the first things that I would like you to understand is a study from the Wharton School of Economics some 20 years ago, which looked at the total C-suite in the United States, all the way from manager to director, VP, president, CEO, and chairman of the board and directors. It found out that there were 22 to 23% of the people in that category who were really incompetent, should not be there, were promoted beyond their capability. The second group of people is what they called status quo managers. Those are people that do their job. They are there from 9 to 5. They do not want any challenges. They do not want any change. They want to be left alone and just do their job, and that's it. And then the third category are what we call the leaders, the movers, the shakers, the people that want to change the organization, that want to improve it, that want somehow to create more value. Next is a category called servant leaders. They are really the people that work for their people. They don't have people working for them. They work for their people, and they remove barriers. They make the organization much smoother and much more efficient. And then you have the super performers. Those are the guys who are outside the organization, change their industry, move things around, create enormous value for their industry and their companies in general. How do you differentiate a leader? What are the traits of a leader? Very often he's intelligent, he's a very good communicator, he's experienced, he's flexible, he's self-developed usually, he's passionate, He usually has a personality, not always easy to understand what's really behind the personality, but he's different. He always has a positive can-do attitude, always, always, always. And he has a solid foundation, be it education or experience or living in different countries or different industries. He usually has a very strong foundation. A leader is also somebody that inspires. Everybody likes to follow a leader because we believe that by following a leader, we are going to come out in a better situation. He's also somebody with vision. Usually he sees farther than the average person. He has focus on the outcome on the long term. He's strategically oriented, not just tactically. He's driven, he's strong, he's looking to the future with confidence. He's an authentic person. He doesn't play roles, he doesn't play games. He is who he is, and he's happy to be who he is. And that's why he's walking the walk. He leads by example. He's not going to be in his office waiting for people to come and tell him something. He's going to go and get the information. But he's also calm, serene. He knows what he knows and he knows what he doesn't know. A leader in general is very people-focused. He pays attention to not only the organization and the structure and the company and the profit, but also the people and the way they work. And he's also a mentor. He develops people. He's an ambassador, free to think and is free of thought, which are two different things. He's charismatic, but he's strong. He's a learner. One thing I've always seen leaders do in their life is always learning. Every single day, they want to learn more. They are curious. They are self-disciplined. And very often, they are rebels, but cool at the same time, because they are rebel in a good sense. If they don't understand something, they'll ask. They're unfazed. They ask people to help them. They're not afraid of that. There are enablers, very forceful. They have convictions. They see the end game and they are willing to fight for it. And they know how to communicate. That is one of the biggest thing about leaders. They know how to communicate. They're always motivated. They follow their heart, they have a passion for what they do. And they are the whole package. When you look at an organization, the people who are visible as the front of the company are the CEO, the president, sometimes the CFO, and the CEO. Sales and marketing are only visible to the customers, not to the suppliers, not inside the company. Operation engineers, technological people are usually hidden inside the organization. Once in a while, they are brought to a meeting with the customer before a very specific purpose. And then you have the customer service people that focus only on the customer themselves. They're not involved in anything else inside the organization. And then you have all the support people, the resources. The reason I'm putting this slide on here is because you can think of a leader in each of these categories, and they have different characteristics and different traits that makes them successful in their business. If you are, for example, hidden inside, your skills of communication and building networks of people are not that important. More important is your organization skills and removing barriers, avoiding silos and things like that. If on the other side, you are the front of the company or visible to customers or suppliers, your capability to lead and to resolve problems and to be more diplomatic are much more important as a leader. What is important for a leader is to think about them as a person who influences a group of people and moves them towards the achievement of a goal. Unless you have the capability as a leader to move people and to explain why it makes sense to go in that direction, you will not be successful. You will not be a good leader. A leader usually has personal power and communication skills. The power comes from what he has inside, from his heart, from his passion, from his feelings and his beliefs and what motivates him. A leader is somebody that changes things, transforms processes, grows people, He's not there to just manage things. He's there to challenge the status quo, to get things better. And for that, to be a great leader, you need the right mindset and the good instincts. This is an interesting difference chart between managers and leader. On one side, the manager is comfortable with what he's doing. He tries to achieve balance. He oversees the processes. Procedures are important to him. He's more technical and process oriented. While a leader is the one that wants to change things. He thinks that the way we operate today is not ideal, that we can do it better. He welcomes risk because risk usually create problems, and he's the one that always has solutions, or he finds solutions, or he looks for solutions, or he asks other people to help him in finding solutions. Substance is more important for a leader than for a manager. And the last and not least, emotional intelligence. Be sensitive to other people, be sensitive to why they do what they do and why they don't do what they don't do. Sentences that leaders will use very often, they try to make themselves irrelevant, they make themselves small by thanking people for what they're doing or asking them, what do you think? How can I help you? Sorry, you made a mistake, but can I remove a barrier for you? What can I do to help you becoming better? And sometimes when they disagree, I understand and respect, but you're right, I trust you. Go and do it. Don't wait for me to give you orders. You're smart enough to go and do it yourself. Qualities of a great leader. Look at those. Ability to inspire, and that is not something that comes easily. It's something that comes with time and with experience and with self-effacement. Ability to delegate. You don't want to be making all the decisions. You want other people to make a decision, and you overview and see that they are all made in the same direction and contribute to the same end goal. And that's part of the communication skill of a leader. He also has a sense of humor, sometimes a sense of appreciation or a sense of position or a sense of timing, but he's always confident. He knows where we're going. He knows what the objective is, what the commitment of the organization are. And he has also always a very good positive attitude, creative, and he's a one-man, honest person. His inside is in harmony with his outside. Usually, and his intuition is sometimes guiding him. What are some of the secrets of a good leader? Think about the following, and this is a little exercise that engineers can make for themselves, but assume that the decision maker makes 70% correct decisions and 30% faulty decisions. And that's pretty good. I've seen organizations with 60-40 or 70-25. Let's just assume 70-30. A manager is a guy that will make one decision per period. It can be per day or per week or per month. He does not admit mistakes and does not correct his wrong decisions. So his rate of success will remain at 70%, whatever he does. A leader on the other side, he makes 10 decisions per period, 10 times more. He always checks behind his back for any negative outcomes. And if he finds that he has made a mistake, he corrects them during the next period. And his rate of success will be like compound interest, will go up from 70 to 75 to 80, 85, and even 90% of the time. And that's why he has much better results than the manager, because he is good enough to understand and to look for negative outcomes and to correct the mistakes and move on and create better outcomes. Lessons learned, move fast. That's typical of a leader. He's always on the move, make lots of decisions. Don't wait for other people to make decisions. Make them yourself and correct the wrong decision fast and keep on being creative. And you'll end up a much, much better manager, much, much better leader. Major secrets of doing business, not only in Texas, but in Texas is important. Where do you find these leaders in organizations? How do you communicate with them? How do you enter in contact with them? You'll find them at fairs because they like to get outside. They like to be visible. They like to talk to people. They like to network. You find them at conferences, giving speeches, making presentations. The people who are purely managers do not want to bother with that. They don't want to be deranged by that. They want to stay in the office and do their little process and procedures. The leaders on the other side want to show the company, want to give away the secrets of what the company is doing and so on, and show a good face of the company. They like to give speeches. So what you do is try to find those people and have coffee, lunch, cultivate the relation, build a friendship with those people, because they will lead you much, much farther than if you have a good relation with 10 managers. One leader will give you much more advanced than 10 managers. Then let me tell you a little bit about another type of leadership. And that's the kind of leadership that I've been myself in all my career, is a servant leader. They work for their people and they don't have people working for them. In my case, I worked for 20,000 people in my career that did not work for me. Think about an organization. A typical organization is like a pyramid with a CEO at the top and then different layers until you get to the bottom when the people are cleaning the floor or doing manual work. The leader, the servant leader, is the one at the bottom of the pyramid. You turn the pyramid upside down and he's at the bottom of the peak, the bottom of the pyramid, and he pushes the people up to make better and better and better, to remove barriers. And he moves to the organization and talks with everybody. Very often when I was running a company, for example, I was shutting down my office and just walking the floor to talk to everybody to make sure that they get the right data and get away from the silos or the barriers of information. And I could understand much better what the organization needed and make much better decisions. Super performers are another category. They are the ones who change their industry. They go beyond the call of duty and they look at to make big changes. I'll give you an example. CEO of Southwest realized that he was only making money when his planes were in the air. So he came up with a little phrase that he used everywhere in his organization: fly, fly, fly. And he made sure that every time there was supposed to be a maintenance or a change of food in the galley or cleaning the air or the plane, all that was done in a minimum time and to maximize the amount of time in the air, because that's what he realized what was making money. And then you have the guy in the banking industry that used the ATM. That changed dramatically the relation between the customer and the bank itself, because now more than 70% of the transactions are done at the ATM and not in front of the counter. What's the difference between a worker and a leader? Look at these two sentences on the left. When we tell people to do their job, we get workers. We make decisions for them and we tell them just to execute. When we trust people to get the job done, we get leaders, because we allow them to make decisions and to move as long as they go in the right direction for the company. We empower them and they become leaders of their own. How to become a great leader? Look at these 13 little sentences on the left. Your role as a great leader is to encourage others. You don't do it for yourself, you don't do it for your company, you do it for the other people around you, your employees, your customers, your suppliers. You lead by example. It means you're always straightforward, always positive, always looking to the future. You have a strong vision and you communicate it to everybody around you. You also have emotional intelligence, and that means that you are sensitive to people, to people's conditions, to people's reactions, to people's attitudes, to their emotions. You're always curious and you keep on learning, developing yourself, because you know that the more you learn, the more you can give to other people. You learn from your mistakes. That is a very, very important trait of a leader, is to realize very quickly that he has made a mistake and to correct it. And leaders very often have mentors. That's how they learn. That's how they can balance the pressures sometimes from the outside or from the inside. They engage in open communications. Very often when I was running some manufacturing plants, I was walking the floor just to understand what people were doing, how they were doing it, what were the problems, what were the barriers. And then I used the power of the position of CEO to remove those barriers and to fix things. You care about everybody in your team, not only the managers that report to you, or the directors, but also about the guy who does security, the guy who runs the CNC machine, the guys who does the test, the guys who do shipping. Everybody in the team is important. And you practice empathy. Sometimes you have to go out of your shell and understand situations and take actions that are not necessarily in the benefit of the cost of the company or the return of the company, but if they are in the benefit of the employees or the customers, sometimes you do that through empathy. Talking of different styles of leadership, on the right-hand side, you see a funny little picture, how to attract employees, customers, suppliers, and basically partners and good people. What makes you attractive as a leader to all these people, and why are they flocking to you to help you build a company? Different styles of leadership is, you can be a director giving orders, or you can be an expresser expressing desires, or you can be the more theoretical thinker, or you can be the guy who will smoothen everything out, the harmonizer. And in different styles, you have different strengths and weaknesses. Let's take, for example, the thinker. He can be he can be fact and process oriented, thinking things through, but he can be also linear thinker, not always matrix thinker, and that can be a negative, a weakness. If you take, for example, the director, he is goal-oriented, he will give decisions, he will make decisions and force other people to take those decisions. That does not always come over easily, and it lacks an esprit de corps, lacks communication. People hear it, but they don't understand it. And that is not the best way of leading a company. Here are even more styles of leadership, all the way from a crisis director, and you see some of those for the moment during COVID, to somebody who's a visionary, a wisdom, a guy who understands his industry and changed the industry, like Martinez in the banking and the guy at Southwest, and everything in between. So you can be an organizer, you can be an inspirer, an influencer, you can be a mentor, partner. You have different graduations from pure reactive crisis director all the way to very long-term looking, visionary, wisdom-oriented. There are several other theories of leadership. One that is called the inborn theory, saying that basically you cannot teach a leader. The leader has it in his genes when he starts his career, when he's born. Then you have a theory that says that it's based on his character, on how he grew up as a small little boy or little girl, and how he acquired experience, especially in his younger years. Another one is based on the traits, like I showed you earlier in the presentation. If you have all these characteristics, it does mean that you are a leader. But if you are a leader, you have most of these characteristics, these traits. Another one is based on behavior, looking at the behavior of several people, which is the most leadership-oriented person, and can you make a difference between their behavior and their results? Another one is situational theory. How do you see a leader when, for example, you put 20 people in a certain situation? Which one is the guy who's going to come out and lead the group and get the solutions and move things around? Then you have the functional theory, which basically says that most leaders are to be found at the top of the pyramid, at the top of the organization, which is not always true. Sometimes you find them in the shipping department, sometimes in the research department, sometimes in the customer department. It depends. And then the last but not least, and that's the one that I prefer the most, is the presence. Very often when you meet 100 people, you can very quickly, if you sense a little bit, who is the leader, who is somebody that can have at times exceptional characteristics, that can move things around, that can get things done. Look at the quote of Simon. I think he says it very well. It's not what we do for ourselves, it's what we do for others that determines a good leader. And that's basically your openness to listen and to understand people. The fact that you are conscious, that you understand how that openness fits inside the organization and inside the structure and the decision-making system. A leader is usually an extrovert. Very few people are introvert. It happens, but it's very seldom. And a lot of leaders have charm. They are agreeable, they are kind, they're generous, but they can be tough also, depending on situation and depending on the. What you really never see in a leader is anxious, tense, touchy, and stable. Leaders usually are very well in their skin. Their inside and outside are in harmony, and they are calm. They show a certain presence, even under stress. On the right-hand side, you'll see 4 quadrants. Leaders are usually found in the supporting and coaching arena because they support other people, they coach other people, they pay attention to what other people are feeling and how they fit in the organization. On the bottom, you will find the people who are more the military style, who are all directing, giving orders, or don't care and just delegate and go and do it and come back when you've done whatever you have to do. So it's a little bit similar to the Briggs-Meyer psychological analysis of people. You'll find most of the leader in the top right-hand side of the charts. On the left-hand side, you have basically a good summary of the basic characteristic of a leader, how they use their influence. Here are even more complicated ways of looking at leadership styles, all the way from bureaucratic to supportive, directive, goal-oriented, and so on. So in the literature, you can see a lot of these different things. And you will see that a lot of people, of so-called experts, are writing and writing and writing. A lot of these things are written by people that are not leaders themselves. And that's why it's sometimes painful to read some of these articles, because they turn around, and they don't really explain the fundamentals. Another way to looking at leadership is how you react in a crisis. That's usually when the true leader comes out, calms everybody, talks, communicates, ask for suggestions, ask for ideas on how to solve the crisis. And usually that process comes out with a better solution than if somebody out of wisdom was purely saying, we're going to do it this way or this way or this way. Leadership is based on inspiration, not domination, on cooperation and not intimidation. This is very true. I've seen it several times in my career. You have some time to be patient as a leader. You have to think different ways, and if one way doesn't work, try another way. Try to inspire your people to come up with ideas. Don't try to dominate a discussion or a reaction or a meeting. That does not work. Cooperation between different people usually bring better solutions. There are more ideas in 100 people than in one head. The other way to look at the leader in a crisis is the guy who goes first in the fire. That's usually the leader, because he wants to sacrifice himself for his people. He will take on the blame on himself and give the credit to his people. Another way of thinking of leadership is look at the personal, the individual itself, at his heart, his passion, his motivation, the why he's doing what he does, and his personality as an individual. Then look at the people around him, his friends, family, direct contacts, how he behaves with those people, how transparent he is, and how he appears to the people directly around him. And then in the public arena with his employees, his suppliers, his customers, the community, How does he react? How is he perceived? How do people interact with him? How does he interact with the people? Those are all three different levels of looking at the leader and understanding his motivation and his charisma. Here's another look at leadership from a conscious capitalism model, where in the conscious capitalism model, they look mostly at stakeholders, not just shareholders. It's not the financial performance of a company that is important. It's also its purpose, its raison d'être, why it exists, what's the culture inside the company, what's the leadership capability. And it looks also at the interaction with the customer, the supplier, the community, the environment, and the planet on which the company and the structure moves and operates. So this is a more global vision, but it fits very well with leaders, because leaders can handle all these complex environments where most managers are focused inside and they can handle one or two different things. A leader can handle 15, 20 different aspects of a business. Serving, serving, serving. It's something that I've seen all through my career. People who are there to help others are usually the best leaders. They are the ones to whom people go when they have a problem, or when they have an idea, or when they want to have approval for something. They rather go to a leader than to a manager, because the manager does not want to be bothered. And a leader is always somebody that grows and helps people. He's always trying to put himself in situations which are not always comfortable for himself, but where he can help people to grow, to climb mountains, or to come out of difficulties, and being professional, being in the office, or even at home. Coming back to conscious leadership, I like this slide because it shows on the left-hand side the foundation of the good leader. And that is fundamental. You have to have these characteristics. Then you have to be invested in your people with commitment, communication, compassion, openness. But then you have to have the next step, which is making decisions, be authentic, the power to act, being present everywhere that the decision has to be made. And then you create a consciousness towards your suppliers, your community, the planet, the environment, your employees, and your customers. Those are different levels to build on before you really become a very good conscious leader. And I'm going to finish my presentation with a couple of quotes. Some are better than others, but look at them individually. And on the left-hand side, what we do at SCORE, we are volunteers. We help companies to start up, but we're also mentors and educators. We help companies with all kinds of situations, being personal or financial or structural, or we see a lot of people who come to us with ideas, but without structure. And we help them put structure on their ideas until they get to a point where they have a good business plan, good marketing plan, good cash flow projection, and they can really go into the banks and say, hey, I know what I'm doing. I'd like to have a little bit of money to go and do it. And that usually works. Another thing that leaders do all the time is they try to find people around them that have the capabilities to become good leaders, and they grow them. They give them responsibilities, they give them objectives, they give them leadway to go and do things so they can grow and learn and become more curious and grow even more. Optimism is the ability to focus on where you're going, not where you're coming from. Simon Sinek is a guy that writes a lot of books and does webinars and things like that. He's a good one to follow if you're interested in leadership. We'll talk about some other ones a bit further. The only sustainable advantage has is its ability to be faster, to make quicker decisions than its competition. If you leave, if you're slow and you leave the market to others, you will not get the leader of your industry. Leaders become great not because of their power, but because of their ability to empower others. John Maxwell is one of the all greats of leadership and servant leadership and conscious leadership. You should, if you want to start anywhere, you should start with John Maxwell and Simon Sinek. Those are probably the best gurus out there. On the right-hand side, you'll see the top 10 leadership traits or characteristics. And they're the same as what we saw in the first couple of slides, 3-4 slides. Accountability is a very important one. They delegate a lot, they empower people, they trust people. Great leaders are not the best at everything. They find people who are better and usually smarter than they are in different aspects of the business. For example, in my career, I always made sure that I hired people that were much better at me in finance or in HR or in research development or customer relations or sales or marketing. The bigger and better people you can find to your organization, the easier your job as a leader becomes. Here are a couple of books about leadership that you might want to have a look at. There are plenty, but those are the top 10 or 11 that I found that I read and I recommend. And I'm going to end with this one. The most important thing in good leadership is truly caring, not only about the people in your organization, your employees, but also about your customers, your suppliers. You want them to be happy with you and you happy with them, and build a good partnership and good relations over time. But it goes beyond that. It goes also to the community in which you live, in which you operate, to the environment that you influence, and to the planet in which you live. And to finish with one from Simon Sinek, the true price of leadership is the willingness to place the need of others above your own. Great leaders truly care about those they are privileged to lead. It's a privilege to be a leader, and understand that the true cost of leadership privilege comes at the expense of self-interest. So everything you do as a leader, and in fact, everything you do also as a good networker, is to take care of the other people. And if you do that, it will come back to you 100 times. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from it. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
There was only one question in the Q&A box, and I've already answered that about getting copies of the, being able to hear the recording.
Okay.
And copies of the slides.
Perfect. Good.
Now there's another question just popped up. Oh, it's not a question, it says thank you. Somebody wants your email.
Yep, no problem. I'll put it in the box.
There's an interesting question, Willie. Seems like you had experience with large businesses. What advice do you have for small business?
Well, as I said earlier, I've been a serial entrepreneur also. I started 4 companies, one in Albuquerque, New Mexico, working with people coming out of Sandia. And I can tell you that leading people who come out of a research organization of that caliber is not easy, because usually they have big egos. They've done some very interesting things. They don't know anything about business, but they think they know everything about it. So you have to manage those kind of aspirations, those kind of it's difficult to say. You have to be more psychologic than anything else. And it works if you are patient and you make sure that you explain exactly what, how, where, the reason that you approach that customer versus another, why you do what you do, and usually it works. But it takes a little bit more time because usually these people are smart and they have a good opinion of themselves. Sometimes you have to be a little bit more psychological with them. I started another company in College Station with people from A&M, much more practical people, much more business oriented, much more feet on the ground. And that was a different kind of leadership where I had much less to be psychologist. I had to be more doer, goer, pusher, make sure that we moved faster than we could otherwise. And then I ran a company in building a potash mine in Congo Brazzaville in a complete different environment, where there you had to be careful. Politics were more important, diplomacy was important, the way of dealing with people and avoiding being trapped in little schemes left and right was important. So there again, the skills that you use and you develop are very, very different than what you have to do or what you do in a big corporation. And last but not least, I ran a company here in Houston, transforming rice hulls into semiconductors, because the rice hull has 20% very pure silica. That's what nature makes. And I had to deal with scientists, I had to deal with operating people. We had a manufacturing plant. So I had to deal at different levels with different people, different skills. And again, it's because of the experience that you gather over the years that you can deal with that and you can make good progress. It's always understand people, what motivates them, what they expect, how you can use their skills to bring them together in the team for the good of the company. And sometimes I find myself as being more a psychologist than a manager, more a leader than doer. So it depends on situations. You use different skills. The key is to understand the situation in which you are and the pluses and the minuses, and to make your decisions. Don't be afraid to make a lot of decisions and to keep looking over your shoulder, see which ones were right and which ones were wrong, and then correct the wrong ones. But the principles are the same in a large corporation or a small one. Simply the speed is different, the scope is different, the impact that you have is different. But the principles are the same. Other questions?
Tai Tran wants to know, when you started these small businesses, what was the first area of focus? Was it marketing or sales or networking or manufacturing or what?
Mostly was customers, yeah, sales and marketing, making sure there were enough customers interested by the products, because you start usually a company with some funds from left or right, from friends or family, or from a bank, or from a VC, and then you have to make sure that you have enough revenue coming in to make sure you can go to the next level and don't have to go back to the banks to be able to pay your employees. So yeah, sales and marketing was always an important one in the start of a new company. And I would say the thing beyond that, just after that, was the product itself. Make sure that the product was fully developed, had all this functionality, that the customer was happy with the interaction with the product, and that everything that you told the customer was delivered.
And Mark wants to know, are there ever a time when integrity would force you to resign rather than trying to manage conflicts that were irreconcilable?
Yes, and I've done that in my life. When I was running the company in Congo Brazzaville, I was living in Houston. My headquarters were in Toronto because this was a Canadian company. My engineers were in Johannesburg, and my project was in Congo Brazzaville. And we invested in Congo Brazzaville $1.8 billion, so big investment. And during that process, we had to have several approvals from the government. And because I speak French, I did all my interaction with the government in French, and that worked very well. People were very appreciative of that. Until I get to the Ministry of Environment, and we had developed for him an environmental and safety impact analysis, a big document, some 350 pages, really excellent document, very well done. Everybody in his ministry told us that it was very well done. And then he come to him and he said, yeah, I see the document, but I need somebody, an expert to look over it and make sure it's correct. I cannot take the risk for my country. So I'm, with your approval, I would send my wife to Paris to go for a month, talk to a couple of people and do some shopping and come back, and hopefully you'll pay the bill for that. And I said, absolutely no way. You can send your wife everything you want, do it. It's all your expense. I will not pay for that. And he said, but then I won't sign the document. That afternoon, I went to see the president, explain the situation. And by that evening, the guy was fired. So you have to stand on your ground sometime and not let other people take charge of your own situation. And then I had another situation. We were starting the plan, we were digging the first holes to build the first building. And I don't remember which one. It was the Minister of Social Affairs. Wanted us to spend some money in the region that we were building a plant for the local population. And I said, that's all in the environmental and safety impact, and there are programs in there to help the villagers and to do things for them and give them employment and functions and business and so on. But he wanted something more, and I realized very quickly that he wanted basically money under the table to go and do whatever he wanted to do himself. And I said again, no. And I left it there and came back to Toronto. And I realized 2 weeks later that somebody on my board had gone to Congo and had given that money to that ministry just to get the paper signed to get our permit of operation. And based on that, I asked him to go back to Congo, get that money back. Otherwise, I resigned from the company. And I resigned. As simple as that. You have to stand on your grounds. You have to stand straight in your boots. Otherwise, you're not a leader.
Thank you. Becky has a really interesting question. She's the owner and the only employee. How does she get to practice leadership skills for the time when she does have employees?
You look at the mirror every morning, and if you can stand your own image, you'll be okay. I think what is important to realize about yourself is if you can live with yourself inside and outside, and your outside is in harmony with your inside, and you feel good about yourself and about what you do and how you interact with other people, being your husband or your wife or your children or your family, or the people you know, or the way you network with people. If you appear like a reasonable person, an honest person, a person who's well in her boots, you won't have any problem with your employees because you will adapt, you will understand, you will be sensitive to potential problems and solve them before they become problems. Also, it's something that you learn very early. Let me give you a little story, how I realized I was a leader. I was 5 years old. I grew up on a farm, and I went to kindergarten on bicycle, 3 miles to go to the school. First mile was a dirt road from the farm to the main road in the village. And there I collected 5 or 6 boys and girls that went to the same school at the same time. And then the last mile was a 1-lane road with no traffic. So the parents left us run over there without any problem. And the first thing I said to everybody else, let's race. And since I said it first, I started to pedal the first one, and I won the race. And since then, I've always been a leader. Nobody has ever passed me by, nor in school, nor in business, anywhere else. And it goes back to that time in my life that I realized that I had the capability of being very fast, of making decisions, of looking at what other people were doing and turn that to my advantage, but always stay straight in my boots and straight honest with everybody and with myself. So if you are honest with yourself and with the people around you, you'll have no problem with your employees.
Okay, and here's our last question. Do you believe in things like a leader dresses a certain way or acts a certain way or has certain body language? And if so, can you practice that?
It's, I don't think there's any dress code or anything like that. It's more a moral code that you have inside yourself and in your attitude and your relation with other people. I don't think you can fake leadership. It's embedded in who you are, in how you behave, and what you believe. It's not something that I see a lot of people going to school to become leaders. I don't believe much in that. I think 80% of the leaders are born leaders. Maybe 20% are improved or are half leader and become good leaders. There's always ways of improving a leadership, but I don't think there's one style or one type or one clothes, or leaders come in very different. You can have obese leaders, you can have very thin leaders, you can have very sportive leaders, very coach or sofa leaders. You can have all kinds. I don't think there's a type that the key is to fit well in your own skin. Once you do that, you're at least 50% on the way to become a good leader.
Okay, thank you very much, Willie. We really appreciate it. Thanks to all the attendees today. Please come back to another SCORE webinar at your convenience.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye-bye.